Okay, let's stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
The way of respecting, honoring, and creating awareness about our past, we begin our village board meetings by acknowledging that New Paltz is on the ancestral land of the Munsee, Sopas, and Lenape people. Please check out our agendas and minutes and help us add to our list of ways to, support our acknowledgement.
Is this thing on? Yeah, it is, right? The mic is on. Adding a couple of things to the business agenda. Item number 8, permission for the Ulster County Veteran Cemetery project to use water from the river using the Sojourner Truth Park approach. And item number 9, Memorial Pool capital expense that the village general fund and the town B fund share. And that is it as far as the consent agenda and the business agenda. Motion to move the agendas as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Announcements. The planning board has some public hearings. The public hearing for 3 two-family buildings at Cooper Street. That public hearing remains open. A second public hearing will open regarding the proposed cat cafe on Church Street. And there's a site plan review public hearing for 61 Church Street. Additionally, we're sharing that the Maya Gold Foundation is presenting a real talk about the path ahead, a conversation about life after high school on May 13th from 4 to 6:30 p.m. at the Denizen at Water Street Market. It's free and open to all. Any other announcements from our village board?
A bunch. So tomorrow night, April 27th at 7:30 p.m. on campus in Student Union Building room 62/63 is Utilities 101. It's our workshop with the New York's Public Utility Law Project and the New Paltz chapter of New York Public Interest Research Group over on campus. And it's basically going to give people an overview of your public utilities rights. The attorneys from PULP will be, answering questions at the end. It should be a really good workshop, so come through. It's free and open to the public. Just so you know, sub 6263, if you walk into, the Louvre part of the sub, it's right down those stairs by the foosball tables. And then Narcan and other harm reduction services are available anywhere in Ulster, thanks to Allenville Regional's Project Rescue Program. You can text ERH Rescue to 2100, and they can hook you up with Narcan and other harm reduction supplies like test kits, snort kits, sex kits, etc. Never Use Alone hotline is available all the time. 800-484-3731. Use it and stay alive. Narcan trainings are always available online at www.opioidpreventionnp.org. And the free food fridge is available outside Village Hall at 25 Plattekill Avenue with food all the time. And volunteers are always needed. Check out the do's and do's nots of donations and ways to get involved by going to millionsofbutterflies.org/free-food-fridge.
Thanks, Alex. I have a couple announcements too. One is sort of a public safety announcement based on what I saw as a resident the last couple of weekends. A lot of folks driving up the one-way at North Front to Main Street and up Church Street to Main Street. So just asking residents to just take extra caution when approaching those intersections in case perhaps out-of-towners, perhaps people who just aren't paying attention are coming up that way. There were a couple of kind of scary near misses that I witnessed more than I thought I should over a 2-weekend span. But also, I'll also make my Family of New Paltz announcement to, don't forget, Family of New Paltz is always looking for donations. Not just of in-season clothing and food, but also of cash donations to help folks in our community who need a little help paying bills. And Family of New Paltz generously helps folks in those areas as well. So financial donations are always needed, and you could bring them during open hours of family.
Any other announcements from village board?
Okay. Montessori of New Paltz is doing a used clothing drive. So all wearable clothing, shoes, accessories, household items like towels and sheets and tablecloths and things should be bagged up in trash bags. And you can bring them on Saturday, May 20th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. and Sunday, May 21st from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Montessori of New Paltz is at 130 Du Bois Road here in New Paltz.
Just a quick one, the Billy Martin Circus is returning to New Paltz after a 3-year absence due to COVID. They will perform at the high school on May 6th at 1 p.m. Proceeds will benefit the New Paltz Youth Center, and we hope to see you all there.
That's a Saturday afternoon.
Saturday, 1 p.m.
Thanks.
And I forgot to say that the clothing drive is actually a fundraiser for the Kyle Brewer Memorial Scholarship Fund.
Great. And before we move to public comment, I move that we accept the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have any public comments in person? You want to sit at the table, just state your name and where you're from.
I'm from New Paltz. My name is Charlotte Moss. I'm an owner of a condo in the Town and Country condos just on Huguenot Street, back behind the parking lot for the Gilded Otter. And I'm here to brand myself as a grumpy old lady, I'm afraid. It's about the music from the Groovy Blueberry. As it weather got nice, I started getting really pessimistic about having to hear that music again this summer. And then besides that, I saw on New Paltz Community Facebook a petition that people were encouraged to sign to move forward a plan to make that Groovy Blueberry venue there into I guess a proper music venue. I'm not sure what, and that was not something I really wanted to see. All last summer, that music went on. I'm sure it was every weekend. If it wasn't, it certainly felt like it. Sometimes for hours and hours and hours all day. And it is so loud that I could not enjoy my own porch. It drove me inside. I would close the windows. I'd turn the air conditioner off. I could still hear it. I could still hear it in the front of my condo away from the Groovy Blueberry. So I live across Main Street, across the Gilded Otter, across the Gilded Otter parking lot, across a little empty wooded lot. And then there's the buildings that I live in. And it still is so shriekingly loud that it's really disturbing. So what do? I, every once in a while, would call the police, and they were incredibly patient and professional, and they would come, and sometimes the volume of the music would go down for a while, and then it would go back up. And then I don't feel comfortable already. I've bothered the police, who I'm sure have many other more serious things to do. I just can't make myself call them again. So I am forced to endure the music. It's not about music. It's about the volume of the disturbance. And, you know, I see that we've got noise ordinances in the village. And it seems like there's several definitions in here that would certainly cover what is going on from the Groovy Blueberry. So I just don't know what to say. I asked for some relief
Did you
this summer.
file a complaint with the police?
Yes. And they said they can't do anything unless, you know, something official or legal, or I don't know what the, you know, I don't know what the next step would be. I
Did
don't
you
know.
approach the owners of the Groovy Blueberry about?
No,
this
I did
volume?
not. I'm afraid to.
I can understand.
I mean, you know, I asked for the volume to go down, it's turned down and then it goes back up again. So I mean,
Was it acceptable when the volume was turned down?
it was better. It was better. You know, I can certainly still, I mean, it's really so loud. It really is.
Well, we can follow up with the police department too, because my understanding of the way the noise ordinance is composed is that if a property, a resident of another property makes a complaint, then that escalates and, you know, that then
I
the
know,
courts would
I
be
know I
involved.
have neighbors who have also complained.
Complain to the police and
Yes.
ask to file a complaint. Okay.
Well, they've asked to have it turned down. I don't know what, you know, exact steps were taken.
They need the paperwork.
And do you know,
They need the paper trail,
Okay,
the police, you know,
okay.
if you file a complaint, that helps.
do you know if it's when they have live music
Yes,
and when they're playing regular music as well?
that you can hear, but it's not as the you know, it's not nearly as loud.
So the
No,
live
it's the
music
live
is
music.
really-
It's the live music I'm talking about. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Have you spoken with the police department this year, or that was
No,
just
because it's
last year?
been
It hasn't.
relatively quiet this
Right,
year.
I see.
Yeah, I think it's the existence of documented chronic 911 calls for police assistance or complaint-driven calls to other sources that are referred to the police department consisting of at least 3 legit calls in a 30-day period, like so that paper trail, I think is what's clutch.
I wouldn't
there
dream
to
of
be-
calling 911. I just feel like that's inappropriate, you know,
I mean, that's what's routed to the.
Yeah, that's just what I'm just.
They're
reading
just
off the
saying that,
code.
yeah.
Yeah.
you know, I call that number, that's the non-emergency number.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the same
Same
thing.
thing.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely the paper trail I think is important when there's not any other route to compromise.
Okay.
And then that paper trail leads to a service of a notice and a plan to have that compromise.
Okay.
And you mentioned interest, or some have suggested that the Groovy Blueberry could turn into a more formal
That was
venue.
interpreting it exactly right.
Heard
This is just what I read on that New Paltz Community Facebook posting that listed the petition.
Right.
So I could have that a little off, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I haven't heard about that.
Because that seems like a very different, I mean, because people play music at their properties all the
Sure,
time,
of
and
course.
I have neighbors that I have to ask them to turn down the music. But I understand that the music at Water Street was larger and it was so consistent, it felt different. And that's frustrating if you ask to turn it down and then it was a little bit more reasonable, then it goes back up. That's not neighborly.
Thank
But
you.
we'll be
Thank
in
you.
touch with
Thank
the
you
police
very
department.
much.
Thanks for taking the time to bring
Yeah,
this to our
thank you
attention.
for listening to me. Thank you.
I just pulled up their petition. And it says, what we want to do is continue to feature local artists live and free of charge to the people of New Paltz. Begin developing our summer programming, Bob Dylan Day, Jerry Day, etc. invite back all of our beloved bands that have been kind enough to donate their time to making New Paltz a more special and music-filled place. What we plan to do, once we've gathered some signatures here, we plan on presenting to the Village Board of New Paltz to see what kind of permits and workarounds we can figure out to make this work. Once we can come to an amenable agreement with the local government, we want to liaise with our neighbors to ensure there's understanding and comfort in how we'd like to schedule shows for the future. So
It'll be
we're
interesting.
acknowledging.
It'll be interesting to see if they go ahead and pursue that formal route. And like in some ways, that might actually be
That might
really
be good.
useful
Yeah.
because then parameters can be set. And I think most people, are largely comfortable with the idea of like outdoor music, especially during daytime hours or, nicer time, but, not at the expense of it being so loud and really aggravating neighbors either, right? There's a line that exists and maybe formalizing what they're doing might be the way to go.
I think that sounds promising.
So we'll see how serious they are about what Stana just read.
Would there be public comment on something like that going forward?
Absolutely, because it would probably require a planning board review, an update to their site plan, an update to the use that's going on at the.
Well, decibels, wow, you've got cars missing with people parking lot,
Right.
no sidewalk.
It's a tricky location, right? So if you're going to formalize it, probably some of those rough edges need to be addressed.
I think there's something about that area too. I live maybe the same distance in the opposite direction as you, and it's very loud in my area as well. So I think it has something to do with.
I think it's the water.
It is, it's something about the environment and the acoustics of the whole area.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be like a bowl phenomenon that amplifies things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Points upwards. It's like sitting in a mezzanine in a theater. That's really good.
Thank you very much. I knew.
You're welcome. Any other public comments? Do we have our friends from the Office of Cannabis Management?
Yep, we are here.
Oh, do we have public hearings? No. No. Hi, Phil.
Hello, how are you?
Pretty good.
Great.
Yeah, thanks for making the Office of Cannabis Management available to provide us with a presentation and help us with some questions that we might have. So we'll
Yeah.
hand it to you guys. Go ahead.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, so we have a PowerPoint that Adam and I will be going through. And it gives an overview of the legislation and also updates everyone on where we are currently in the enrollment. So with that, we'll get going. I'm going to share my screen.
Phil Rumsey and Adam.
Stoneski.
Thank
Better
you.
his picture.
Go. Okay. Yeah, Adam, when you're good
Yeah.
to go.
We can just hop into the next slide.
Sure.
So my name is Adam Stoneski. I work with Phil Rumsey at the Office of Cannabis Management, program specialist in the intergovernmental affairs. So we work a lot with municipalities. Beginning with the basics, what is Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act? You're going to hear Phil and I refer to it as the MRTA, or also known as MRTA. This is the law that was signed as of March 31st of 2021. It created our Office of Cannabis Management, as well as the 5-member Cannabis Control Board that oversees our division. It additionally created a 20-member Cannabis Advisory Board. And more importantly, honestly, it legalized adult use cannabis, expanding on the state's existing hemp and medical programs. It made a real shift into the public health framework. Economic development, social justice, and public safety are huge aspects of the law. Next slide. So again, social and economic justice is the real prime thing of the MRTA. It sets a goal of 50% of all adult use licenses being awarded to social and economic equity applicants. We also creating a social and economic equity plan that will help these licenses be successful in this industry. Record expungement, it automatically cleared nearly 400,000 records. And community reinvestment, that's going to be 40% of all of our adult use tax revenue going to these communities, rebuilding that were disproportionately impacted by policing. Next slide. So now that cannabis is legal in New York State, what does that mean? Adults over 21 can now possess and buy cannabis. That is up to 3 ounces of cannabis flower and up to 24 grams of cannabis concentrates. That's your oils, tinctures, edibles, vapes. Cannabis can be smoked in your private home or state licensed on-site consumption sites. At this time, on-site consumption sites are not a thing. Regulations surrounding this haven't even been adopted yet. A good rule of thumb that we say at the office is anywhere you can smoke tobacco is allowed to be smoking cannabis. Good rule of thumb. A lot of this falls under the Clean Indoor Air Act, which you may be familiar with. Next slide. Taxation. So we're implementing a THC per milligram tax rather than a weight-based tax. We find that this helps push consumers to lower potency products, really the low, go slow, start low kind of motto. It's a 3 cents per milligram tax on edibles, a 5 cents per milligram tax on cannabis flower, 8 cents per milligram tax on THC concentrates. Also additional to that, there's a 9% state excise tax on the sale of cannabis products by a retailer to a cannabis consumer. And then the 4% local excise tax is going to be happening at the rate of the retail price. 25% would go to the county, and then 75% would go to the village in this case. Next slide. So where's that money going to? We talked a little bit about it. Drug treatment and public education, 20% will be awarded. That is development of implementation statewide public education. We currently have a campaign going on, the Why Buy Legal campaign. This is where that money will be going to. Additionally, also, we have more on the way. 40% to those community grant reinvestments. We talked about that prior. Those are grants going to nonprofits, again, to those communities that were disproportionately impacted by cannabis prohibition. And then 40% to the education fund. Next slide, Phil. So opportunities in New York State cannabis industry. So these are the 9 license types in front of you that are in and written in the MRTA. That's retail dispensaries, on-site consumption, cultivator, nursery, processor, distributor, delivery, adult use cooperative, and micro business. There's 7 of these are in our proposed regulations right now. The only 2 that are missing are on-site consumption and delivery. We can go next slide, Phil. So in New York State, we're implementing a tiered system. This allows a lot of points of access for small business, allows operators to really get their foot in the door. It kind of pushes away these big multi-state operators. So if someone was in the supply tier, let's say I was a cultivator, I would be banned from having financial interest and also business interest in anything in the retail or the medical or laboratory fields. Again, this allows for small business, someone who wants to come in as a cultivator and really, hammer down that field and become a really successful cultivator can, and they don't have to compete against someone who, let's say in Massachusetts, where I could be a supplier, I could be a cultivator, I could also be a processor, and I can be a distributor, really making it so you're going to have these almost monopolized organizations. But next slide. So ancillary businesses, you guys have this already in your village. These are businesses that are already currently operating, but all they have to do is just shift their field of work into the cannabis industry. We're talking security companies, retail firms, media networks, all these things. They don't need a license from us, but they're absolutely welcome to join into our ecosystem. A lot of our licensees need these services. So it's a great way to, really get economic development in the village and really have this booming ecosystem. Next slide. So we're going to talk about the conditional adult use licenses. This is a good spot to kind of just for the difference here. We've been talking about the MRTA licenses. Those are those 9 license types I showed you. And these are, I guess, 7 of them are in the regulations, those proposed regulations that came forward. Talking about what we're doing right now as we're speaking is the conditional licenses. These are separate from the MRTA. It's a standalone conditional license system, and this basically allows us to create this small micro ecosystem to get a healthy cannabis industry going. These are adult use conditional cultivator licenses, adult use conditional processor licenses, and as you may know, CARD, which is our conditional adult use retail dispensaries. Next slide. So conditional licenses, we have about 279 for our conditional cultivators, 40 processors, and 165 retail dispensaries. Kind of for the CARD program, your eligibility, you could have been a not-for-profit that serves justice-involved individuals, or you could be come in as a qualifying business, and in that case, you would need 2 factors: past conviction in New York State for a marijuana-related offense, and also be able to run a business for 2 years of profit. And this is really kind of the 2 foundational requirements to be in the CARD program. Next slide. So role of municipality, you want to take over here, Phil?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, so we want to dive into what your first experience might be when dealing with a license. So with the 2 license types, dispensary and on-site consumption, if any individual wants to move forward with those in your municipality, they do need to send you a notification. And that will kick in a process where you, as the municipality, can express an opinion. And this can be any kind of opinion, whether you like or dislike the individual, whether you like or dislike the location. You can express any opinion you want on the dispensary or on-site consumption. Municipalities do not have a role in other license types, so you wouldn't be able to express an opinion with the nursery or processor distributor licenses. This opinion that you express will be sent into the Cannabis Control Board, and they will weigh your opinion with the other criteria that we have for applicants. So it will have an effect, but it is an opinion that you will be expressing. As far as the licensees themselves, we are telling them they do have to submit this notification. And I do want to flag a lot of these references we're making. We will send links directly to this. We will send you links directly to the notification form and other things that we're referencing here. We are reminding applicants they need to be mindful and aware that the municipality needs to know that they're coming into their municipality with one of these 2 licenses, and that the opinion from the municipality will have an impact, as I said, on the Cannabis Control Board and whether or not they grant or deny a license. So retail guidance, this is a very important document, and again, we'll make sure we get it over to you. This is a 30-page document that we have all licensees sign and agree that they will implement. If they do not implement these this guidance that we're giving them, they will not be able to open a dispensary. So again, the CARD applicants, the conditional retail dispensary applicants, need to go through, sign it, and implement these. This includes everything from inventory tracking, security, facility requirements, branding, signage. All of these will have to be taken into account before opening. I do want to flag that when Adam was talking about the MRTA regulations, those did go out December 14th of last year for their 60-day comment period. And they were pulled back in on February 13th of this year. Right now, our legal team is working overtime to go through the public comments. We're hoping in May that the board will review and approve the changed regulations to the MRTA. And then they will go out for an additional 45-day comment period. So we do want to flag for everyone here and for your constituencies that there will be time to weigh in on these regulations with things you like or do not like. A part of this guidance to retail dispensaries, it covers a lot. And again, we will make sure you get that link because it's a very important document. If you can take the time to read it over, you'll have a very clear understanding of dispensaries. Some of the things in the document, this for staffing, we will always have an employee in charge. If we need to reach out to a dispensary for a product recall or a complaint, or them not being in compliance with us, we will have a singular person that we can reach out to. The document also covers the curriculum requirements. We call individuals working in dispensaries bud tenders as opposed to bartenders. And there are curriculum that they need to take and be aware of. Again, in this document, it goes into the details of even signage. We will only allow 2 external signs. They will not be allowed to have any images, logos, or symbols on them. We even get down to the font that can be used on sides. And the reason for this is that we learned a lesson from the tobacco companies of how they went out of their way to market towards children. And we're going to make sure that these dispensaries blend into the community and are not eyesores. And in addition to the signage, there's no neon signs that are allowed. We will not allow people to open their doors if they have a neon sign. So again, these are highly regulated entities, and we go into a lot of detail in that guidance. Menu and prices do have to be available online and in the store. People need to know what they're getting when they walk in there. There's age verification. If you're under 21 and you want to purchase cannabis, you won't be able to get to the, you won't be able to do that. They check when you come in and at the register as well. Customer education, part of the curriculum that we're giving to the bud tenders are making sure that they understand the products they are selling so that individuals going into the stores understand them. You know, it can be very confusing for some people when they are wondering what the difference between wax and a joint is, or gummies and a tincture. These are words that people have not heard before, and it's confusing. So these individuals in these stores will be able to walk everyone through the different products they have. OCM enforcement activities, this is what we want to end with. We have heard, you know, we say that we give presentations from the eastern side of Long Island to west of Buffalo, and enforcement has been a very key and important issue that we've been hearing about. One of the issues right now is that the MRTA, MRTA, did not give the Office of Cannabis Management jurisdiction over cannabis. It gave us jurisdiction over licensed entities only. So when these illicit shops are popping up, we don't have the direct jurisdiction that we would normally like. We have been, our enforcement division has been working with local law enforcement DAs and describing what they can do right now in order to help crack down on these stores. And we are using a variety of tactics right now. I will show really quick, here's our enforcement team down in New York City. You can, you know, the far right picture, that's a gigantic neon sign, which isn't allowed in regulated cannabis. And it also says cannabis dispensary. So our enforcement team pointed out, if you want to make it easy for them, just put a gigantic neon sign that says cannabis dispensary, and we will know it's an illicit shop very quickly. Here's a before and after picture. All the products on the left had THC, and this is what was left over when our enforcement division left. One example of how we're going after not only stores, but also trucks. First and foremost, if there are any edibles being sold at these locations, that brings in a whole host of Department of Health issues. Anything that you're digesting does have greater regulation at the county and state level. We went after these trucks, again, similar to how we go after some of the brick and mortar locations. Some of these trucks had violations or expired out-of-state registration or improper registration. They weren't registered to sell food in any way. So those are the ways that we're going after the illicit sites, since the MRTA did not give us the full authority that we would like. Here's another step in our process to push back a bit here on the illicit stores. Any legal dispensary that opens will have this sticker. I would say it's about maybe 13 inches tall, give or take, and so it's a pretty prominent sticker. You'll be able to walk up to this and scan the QR code, and it's going to bring you directly to the OCM website, which will then verify that yes, this is a legal dispensary, and it's verified on the website through this QR code. We do need some assistance with these illicit shops. We ask, if possible, you could either send in information to our complaints@ocm.ny.gov email, or use this link, which will be available in the PowerPoint we send over to you. Brings you to a form on our website. We ask for as much information as possible, name of business, and address. We never would suggest, and we certainly don't want anyone putting themselves in a situation that they feel uncomfortable or they feel unsafe. It's simply as much information as possible to send to us will help jumpstart our ability to crack down on them. Chair Wright of the Cannabis Control Board and Chris Alexander, the Executive Director at the Office of Cannabis Management, did say that individuals who ignore our cease and desist letters, continue this behavior, will not be allowed to receive a license from the Office of Cannabis Management. So we are trying to put up some as many roadblocks as possible. And I do want to flag lastly that we do have a bill that's being worked on literally as I'm speaking right now that would give us additional authority over cannabis. We would have authority over cannabis itself. We would have authority to go into unlicensed facilities as well, and also much more significant fines for these illicit sites. And we certainly hope to be able to share that with you as it's being worked on. As I'm sure you know, the budget process is been a little bit rocky, a lot of important issues they're hashing out. This is one of them. And we certainly hope to see this passed very quickly. Will help us crack down. So lastly, if you would like to receive regular emails from us, you can go right to our website and sign up for emails. They'll let you know when the Cannabis Control Board, Cannabis Advisory Board, and any press releases we send out will be sent to you. So with that, we'll stop sharing here. And unless we covered everything and you don't have any questions, it would be a first, but maybe. Otherwise, we're ready to address any questions you have.
Great. Anyone from our board want to start with questions?
I have a question. So what if any, what would a local law enforcement do should one of these violations come up? Or is it something that strictly is through OCM?
It's not strictly through OCM. And right now with legalization plus a rather weak ability for us to go out with the jurisdiction we were given over cannabis, there are a few things that can be done at the local level, but it's not the easiest path forward by any means. I don't want to beat around the bush. Penal Law 222, it does list a variety of ways that local municipalities could go after illicit shops. They are operating without a proper state license. So, if someone started to sell shirts or shoes in a store and they did not go through the proper process with your village, I'm sure that there would be ways to maybe crack down on them or try to shut them down. We also, our enforcement team can reach out and speak directly to the law enforcement, whether that be a sheriff or a local police department, and walk them through what they've been doing, ways that they have been able to crack down properly. And that's certainly something we can flag for our enforcement team if it's an additional follow-up, if you would like.
Yeah, for instance, we had one of those trucks show up on Main Street somewhat recently, and they said they were selling T-shirts with a free gift.
Yeah.
And people were complaining and wondering why the cops couldn't do anything.
Yeah, and again, I mean, I think with, I would do a deep dive. Or is this a truck that has proper state local documentation that they can use this truck for that purpose? If not, I would go after it. Do they have the proper registration? If not, I'd go after it. Are they allowed to collect taxes in this business structure? If not, you could go after it. There are a variety of ways right now. And again, these are not the direct kind of sledgehammer that people are looking for. I understand that. These aren't the answers that everyone wants. This is the reality that we're dealing with. And especially with food trucks, we have found success in, being able to impound them for not having the proper registration. Anyone can grab a van or purchase a van. It doesn't mean they have the right to start selling out of it in different places. So that's another way I think you could certainly go after a situation like that.
And with the equity plan, are there discounted licenses happening for those who were directly impacted? Like how, because most people who've been through that are going to have $100,000 to get a license.
Yeah, so if you actually, the proposed regs kind of touch on application fees. Our application fees are some of the lowest for legalized states, very affordable prices. But again, with the equity plan, we're trying to make sure we have programs and set that can make people who already have the skills of maybe cultivating cannabis or selling cannabis in our legacy markets, but giving them the skills of how to run a business, how to properly do your taxes, how to do payroll, all these skills that they may not have, really helping them to have a successful business at the end of the day. We want to make sure that our application fees and license prices are fair, equitable, but also make sure we have a sustainable market and can continue, licensing. But yeah, we definitely we want to make sure that, our voice is heard and that we can definitely have an equitable market when it comes to cannabis.
I have a follow-up.
To drive home what Adam said, just real quick, you can spend $250,000 in some states and you end up with nothing. The application fee is $250,000 and they can go through your application, cash your check, and then you end up with absolutely no license whatsoever. They can reject it. So we're nowhere near those numbers at all.
You do appreciate that our state seems to be the only one that has really worked on this the way we have. So that means a lot.
So I have a follow-up question regarding the card program. My understanding is that the opportunity for those licensees will involve effectively a loan that could be paid back in 10 years. So would that license fee and some of the build out of the space, is that all rolled up into a loan that's paid out over 10 years?
Yeah, I can jump in and feel like I'm gonna tag along after. So that would be DASNY, and it's kind of the fund is what we call it. Basically, what you're getting for card is a $2,000 application fee. Again, that was actually the lowest we've seen for application fees. But basically, what people can do is they can go through the fund and say, hey, we would like to have a location. DASNY would source that location, provide the money and the loan for the build out, for up-to-date systems, really having a turnkey ready store. And then that's where that loan payment would come back at a very low rate to that licensee to pay back to the fund. Again, it's getting them some of the high tech stuff when it comes to industry standards, making sure that they're ready just to turn the key and have an operating business to the best standards possible. DASNY is also, when they're looking at these locations, they're looking for standards of high foot traffic, big retail commercial areas, but really places where these licensees can be successful. And that's a huge thing for us, for these car licensees, to have the first movers advantage, have these prime retail locations, and really be successful in their communities. But Phil, if you want to talk anything more about the fund.
I mean, yeah, I think that you certainly covered the main parts. The fund did just get going. I mean, it was really a few months ago that they were able to pull things together and jump through the legal hurdles that they had. And there are two ways. I mean, people can go the DASNY route and receive and then have access to that money, or they can come with their own facility and say, I already own this area. That does cut them off from the fund. But there's two paths forward right now. So.
Any other questions from the board?
Yeah.
Go
Two
ahead, Joe.
questions, if you don't mind. On your second slide, you talked about community grant reinvestments. Could you talk a little bit about those? What types of programs and organizations might be recipient of those funds?
Yeah, I can start off with this one, and Adam, you can jump in here. Yeah, the community grant reinvestment. So it's a good opportunity to distinguish the Cannabis Control Board, who approves the regulations and has the final vote on the license, where your opinion on dispensaries will be sent. And then the Cannabis Advisory Board. And the Cannabis Advisory Board is the one that's creating the mechanisms for the community grant reinvestments. And they're going to be, creating and voting on the different kinds of criteria that might need to apply. Obviously grants or perhaps loans to different nonprofits or entities. They've met, I believe, 3 times, maybe 4, I think 3 times now. And they're still working through that process. But it will most likely be communities would be able to apply for certain funding through the mechanisms that they create. So almost like applying for a grant from New York State, but hopefully less complicated is the kind of general way that this would be implemented. And again, the specifics are being worked on right now by the advisory board.
Great, thank you. The other question I had is, if a municipality wants to issue an opinion about a location, is that something that comes directly from the municipal leaders, elected officials? Can it come from the public? How is that? What's the process for that?
Yeah, I mean, we tell the licensees that they do need to send the notification to the clerk of the municipality. Just so it's, because clerks are kind of universal to different municipalities depending on size. And from there, the municipality can do really whatever it would like to do to express an opinion. If that means the mayor, town supervisor wants to write a letter, that it can happen that way. I was actually speaking yesterday to Association of Clerks in Syracuse, and someone asked if an adjacent municipality could express an opinion as well. And I said, yes, if you want to reach out to a neighboring municipality, you can have them express their opinion, but it has to come from the municipality that the dispensary or on-site is going to. It can come in whatever form you'd like. You could also have individual council members write individual letters and the mayor write one. And you can kind of say, this is officially our opinion. It's 5 different ones, but this is the opinion. It can come in whatever form. It can also address whatever you would like it to address. If you want to address the applicant specifically or the location specifically, it can come in any form you would like to express. We certainly don't want to limit your ability to get that out there. And again, it will be taken into account by the Cannabis Control Board before they make their decision.
Thank you.
You had a question, Alex?
Yeah, I have a couple questions, but just first a comment. I feel very grateful the way you described right now, like creating the ecosystem, because I kind of use the same word ecosystem this morning with a friend saying who was complaining, why is it taking so long? And I was like, well, like New York has to get it right and different than all the other states, creating the ecosystem to get cannabis right. So my questions are kind of about, okay, first, if like a municipality's planning board approves a site plan for some sort of cannabis related business to operate, does that have any impact on the business's application process, through the actual OCM?
You mean if you approve it before, like you kind of approve it with the applicant before we've decided or anything?
Yeah, so there's a lot of applications, for all sorts of ideas going through, planning boards, not only here, but like all over the state. But obviously that stuff hasn't been approved yet, Two here. One approved. Thanks, Autumn.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly still need to go through our kind of filtration process, let's say, where taking into account 500 feet from a school on the same block or street, 200 from a house of worship. DASNY and OCM are looking at a 1,000-foot radius around the dispensaries. We don't want a Starbucks effect, or we don't want a dispensary in every corner. It would destroy the ecosystem. They wouldn't be able to compete. So we don't want it to be saturated, and we certainly heard from communities they don't want that as well. I think if if an individual is kind of in that process and they're able to tell us, look, we have support from the municipality, they have approved these locations, it would only be a positive. I certainly don't want to say that if we're on the cusp of rejecting an applicant and we hear that a municipality gave them approval or something, it won't necessarily change that. But it will only help if we know that there's local support and that there's areas within the municipality that have been approved. Yeah, it would only be a benefit to the applicant in that way.
It doesn't, cut that necessary improvement from you guys either. And you kind of touched on the other question that I had that's come up on our community's Facebook pages a bit, but like limiting the number of dispensaries or anything like that, that 2,000
feet in hour.
that radius.
The radius.
It's based on population, so depending on the village, it could be either 1,000 to 2,000 feet between dispensaries.
I looked it up, it's 2,000.
Right, so because we're less than 20,000 people, it's 2,000 feet. But my question has to do with that, because my understanding is that when heat map studies have been done in places that are more congested, that a lot of those rules would not make a whole lot of sense. And you'd end up with kind of an artificial framework where dispensaries might end up because of like X number of feet from schools, Y number of feet from houses of worship, Z number of feet from each other. So you kind of create this like weird set of rules that I think has some unintended consequences. So what I'm hearing is that might be changed in the guidelines that you asked for feedback from February. Like, do you anticipate any significant change from that 2,000-foot rule for a community with fewer than 20,000 people?
Yeah, I mean, that is, you kind of hit on part of the problem with answering that, which is we're in I think purgatory might be the perfect word. We're literally in between these two comment periods, and we're smack right there. Yes, there is a chance some of this can change. We don't know what comments have come in or the number of them and what changes. We're going to figure that out when the hopefully in May next month, when the board reviews these. We'll see if these changes have been incorporated. But yes, there's certainly a chance. If there's a lot of pushback on the 20,000 population that Adam was referencing, maybe that would change. The problem is, we certainly don't want to come out here and guarantee that certain things will be identical 3 months from now. We're in that purgatory process, and we certainly don't want to put any ideas in people's heads where they start thinking, oh, it's going to be 500-foot radius around dispensaries, not 1,000 or something. So we do.
But you don't think it will be 0 feet?
Correct. I don't see it going to 0. I don't think
Because of the Starbucks effect, as you described it?
yeah, we do. I mean, we know from other states, if you have dispensaries, right on top of each other, they simply can't sustain their business at all. It's stretched too thin. None of them can really make the profits or breaking even if there are too many of them. So I wouldn't expect it to go to 0. And the only thing we can really reference are the regulations that were pulled in on February 13th. And those are going under changes as we speak. So it's just it's an unfortunate time period right now to say yay or nay to the radius and things like that. But I certainly wouldn't expect it to go to 0 by any means. And we haven't heard that expressed by municipalities or by licensees that that's something that they would like. So I would be surprised if we received many, comments like that. Yeah, it's just we're in purgatory. It's a tough time to get into the granular details.
So without boxing you into a corner, if we said like in 3 years from now, if the combined population of the town and village of New Paltz is around 15,000 people, how many dispensary licenses do you anticipate a community like ours would have, both card and adult use?
One, I'll just flag that the conditional 2-year card, they will have the opportunity to roll that over into a permanent MRTA license as long as they're in compliant and have been a good actor during that time. That would be difficult for me to guess. I mean, I don't know how many would necessarily be in there. I know that some individuals from larger municipalities are saying they would prefer to have more dispensaries, and whether or not enough people kind of flagged that and said, would a municipality be given permission to maybe reduce the 1,000-foot radius and say, we want to accept more, we want more to come in? That's something that may make its way into the regs, because I've heard people reference that. They would like the ability that they know their municipality the best, they know their city, town, and village, and they're comfortable with more dispensaries. There may be some sort of waiver process or simply ability to have the municipality pass a law and say, we will allow them to be 500 feet apart. So it does become very difficult right now to kind of narrow down the exact number that might be allowed in there in the village.
Yeah, additionally, too, part of the proposed regs too allows that the board has a decision to make the dispensaries closer than that 1,000 feet if they feel that it's going to be good for public standards and it's a viable location. Again, we really want to make sure that at some point, if a business is right next to another dispensary, they will be competing for business at the end of the day, and one may not survive and one will. So we want to make sure that you got that healthy ecosystem, that we're allowing everyone that equal opportunity to have a successful business. And we do have that provision as is right now to have the board approve something that's closer.
So we could, on our own, express comfort with having more dispensaries closer to each other, but wouldn't OCM make the final decision in terms of who's granted a license? And then your concern about the Starbucks effect might be baked into your final decision of who gets a license.
Yes. And again, part of the problem is, we're not right now with the regs the way they are, we're not sure if municipalities will be able to take the lead on that and say, look, we want this, or if an applicant will have to apply. This becomes an issue of 1,000 feet, then the control board coming in. I know that a lot of municipalities have expressed the want to be able to initiate this at their local level as well. So that might be something that is in the final regs as well, to allow you to kind of take that position, since you know your village better than anyone else, and what your constituencies would feel comfortable with. So again, right now, I mean, in this phase, we can reference proposed regs, which may have already changed some of the references to them. So it becomes difficult to narrow some of this down.
So we've been focused more on proposed dispensaries in our community, because that's, what we've seen before our planning board. But what about lounges and dispensaries? Do those distance requirements apply the same way?
Yeah.
So
Adam, do you wanna-
yeah, lounges would be kind of our on-site consumption. Regulations haven't even been drafted for those yet, or even proposed. So we really can't talk about that. There is no on-site consumption at dispensaries. So really there wouldn't be any of those, again, consumption sites. Anything that legality smoking would be anything that falls under the Clean Indoor Air Act, and anywhere that you're allowed to smoke tobacco products would be places you could smoke. But again, future regulations, me and Phil always sound like a broken record, but when those regulations come out, they'll spell out how an on-site consumption will be, established, distance requirements, municipal procedures, and all that stuff. But most likely it will probably fall under that same thing of the distance requirements.
Yeah, and it's a good question to kind of jump to. When we start giving out the MRTA licenses, and again, I can't predict when we will start this, based on, if the board votes in May, that 45-day kicks in. We're looking at towards end of August, possibly beginning of September. And your question about, like on-site, when we start building out this ecosystem, we have to start with the basics. So cultivators and nurseries that grow the clones and the seeds and things like that, we'll have to get those up and running, and kind of moving through the ecosystem to build it from scratch. And on-site, as Adam said, is one of the 2 licenses that are not in those proposed regs right now. And that's simply because on-site wouldn't make or break the ecosystem, right? It's something we can kind of take a breath on, come out with the regulations in the future, and have people weigh in on them specifically. But again, one of the reasons we don't have them in there is that they're not vital, right? It's not like we'll be missing product if there's no on-site consumption or along those lines. So it is something that we're going to address soon, and it does help to kind of describe how we'll be putting out the MRTA licenses to build the industry from literally the ground up.
I have one final question, but I want to see if the board has anything else. So my question has to do with taxation. Can you just explain how the sales tax is collected and dispersed? Again, I know you had a slide, but what's unique about us is we're a village within a town. And from what I understand, is that this program has a very unique process in terms of sales tax collection and disbursement.
Yeah, I mean, we have the 3-layered tax system, the THC per milligram, the 9% excise, and the 4% local. That kicks in at the dispensary level when a consumer is purchasing the product from a dispensary. That's when the taxation will kick in. And yeah, it's going to be, I don't have the exact timeline of when it will be distributed exactly. That's something we can follow up on. But I mean, was that kind of your question? I wouldn't be able to walk you through exactly, like, if when the money would be coming in right now, say if you were to open up a dispensary tomorrow or something, we can kind of drill down on that for you.
Okay, because we wanted to buy a fire truck with future earnings. I'm just kidding. But no, my question has to do with my understanding is that the county and the state will get their share, and then there's a local revenue stream, and then because we're a village, I believe we share that. Like if there's a dispensary sited in our village, we share that with our town. And then in comparison, if a dispensary is sited in our town, the town keeps all of that local share. Do you know more about that?
So Phil, correct me if I'm wrong, but so there's the 4% local excise tax that you will be receiving. Of that 4% excise tax, 25% of that will be going to the county. And then the other 75% will be going to the municipality that retail dispensary is located in. If it's in your village, that 75% would be going to the village.
And
100% of it. So I was under the impression that of that 75% piece, part of it goes to the village and part of it goes to the town.
there does have to be a distribution agreement with villages and towns. And to be honest,
I thought the default agreement was 50-50, and yes, we could come up with our own agreement, but without an agreement, the default is 50-50.
I haven't come the 50-50 I haven't come across that, and honestly, it might be something that just kind of popped out of my head. We always say that there does need to be that revenue agreement between village and town and village. And you know, I've spoken at NICOM, the Association of Mayors, and got into there was a heated debate amongst the audience of whether or not that was fair. You could have an opt-out village and a town that remained opted in, and that's going to cause some issues there. We can circle back, Adam, unless you know about the 50.
Nope. So what I'll do is I'll circle back in the email tomorrow. I'll follow up. I'll send you guys the slides, some of the links that we provided, and I'll work with the team internally just to get that answer back to you. But I'll include it in that.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, we should be a pretty straightforward case because both our town and village have opted in, and we are just a village within a single town. Unlike, you know, my colleagues at NICOM, there could be like various villages in a town, or
It's
a village that
complex.
overlaps two towns. Like we're plain vanilla. So whatever you guys review, it should be pretty straightforward for us.
Yeah, and we haven't gone through that process, or I should say, we don't know a municipality that's gone through the process of, you know, sitting down and discussing it and kind of ironing out an agreement on the distribution. So I'm not aware that that's happened yet, but I think that's more has to do with the fact that, you know, we don't have hundreds of dispensaries open. It just hasn't hit from a mathematical perspective yet. So yeah, we will certainly follow up with that and look into that 50-50 kind of fallback split. Or if something else needs to be ironed out, for sure.
Perfect. Thank you.
Quick, one last question that I thought of. Does anybody have an idea of like when the court case might be over so that
The federal
everything will start
injunction.
to open? Yeah.
It's
Actually, you got Ulster County would have, you guys are already, so they did a modification to the injunction and now only applies to Finger Lakes region. So that'd be like Rochester area. So card licensees are now able to move forward in Ulster County. I think that would be Mid-Hudson region would be the region for the ESD. But yes, so we're all good moving forward with that. It's limited injunction now. Hopefully we can get that all settled.
Thank you. I hadn't heard. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
And thank you so much for
Awesome.
coming. And
Well, thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here.
Yeah, expect a follow-up email. Have a great rest of your night.
Okay. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item on our business agenda is restarting community choice aggregation in New Paltz. When a new energy supply company is chosen, but we have selected one. No problem. So the bid process has occurred with our administrator. an ESCO has been identified. And then we responded and said that we wanted to go with their greenest program for the longest length of time, which I think was only 3 years. But we discussed that at a previous village board meeting. But I think what's important in terms of explaining next steps to our community is that there will be opt-out letters sent to members of our community. So folks will get these letters, and because it's an opt-in program, you're automatically opted in unless you choose to opt out. So those letters are going to go out. That process is expected to begin in mid-May.
Except if you already have your own ESCO,
Right.
you're going to not necessarily get the letter.
Right, because you only get the letter if you're in the default.
Yeah.
In this situation, your generation is coming from Central Hudson. So if you're buying generation from a different ESCO, you don't get that letter, right? So you can then contact the administrator and say, I would like to opt in and use the CCA's ESCO.
Yeah.
Yep.
The Hudson Valley Community Power recommends that if you have an ESCO currently, you should contact them to discuss the possibility of termination and find out whatever termination fees may be applicable to your situation before making the change.
Yeah, that's probably a really good point, because you might have fees and your contract also might not be month to month. So that's great advice from our CCA administrator. Don't automatically jettison your ESCO, find out the terms of your agreement.
And since there's no way for us to really, as far as we know yet, and Gardner is having the same issue of like, how do we reach the ESCO people? I think we'll just share this as widely as possible all the time.
Right.
As a reminder. It's on everyone's to-do list if you have an ESCO.
Okay, next item is I move to schedule a public hearing at our next meeting. This is in regards to Schedule B, the density control schedule. We would like to match the language in the code as written in District Regulations, Section 212.13. For any discussion? All in favor? Aye. And regarding our waste hauler RFP, at our previous meeting, we moved to have companies bid on that opportunity, and the town board and the village have discussed moving the deadline to May 10th for those haulers to submit their proposals. The town already took that action at their April 20th meeting, and I move that we do the same so that those interested in bidding would have to submit a bid before May 10th at 10 a.m.
Second.
And then this is just an additional detail. Any questions regarding the RFP should be submitted by Friday, February 5th to the clerk's office. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
May 5th.
Did I say the wrong thing?
You said February.
And we have the fire protection contract. This is the agreement between the town and the village. I move that we accept the fire company contract. All in favor? Aye. Next item is an additional option for parking. We figured we would give folks the opportunity to buy a daily pass to park at Village Hall when spots are available, because we generally rent those out in 6-month increments. But if there were visitors who are here for example, 5 days, they might want to be able to leave their car somewhere for an extended period of time. So this is kind of like intermediate term parking. So they could do it for up to 10 days in any 1 month at a cost of $12 per day. So we could just add this on the schedule if you guys think it makes sense. What were you gonna say, Bill?
Just, where would I purchase one of these?
Clerk's office, same way you get the other permits.
And can you buy them in advance, say 2, 3 weeks in advance, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
And
All in favor, what, go ahead.
come up with the price. The
Uh,
$12.
Me, Roseanne and Nancy, talk about it.
Okay.
Seems fair.
It seems-
Why, what do you think? High, low?
Well,
It's pretty sweet, yeah.
it's a sweet deal. I would think 20, but like, hey.
Well, I also think it's kind of an experiment. Let's see
Yeah.
if there's any demand for
Okay.
this. I mean, I've just had I've been contacted a couple of times by folks suggesting that there's demand for this, and I'm like, really? So let's try. And I think if there's a ton of demand, we can revisit that price in the future. But it should be relatively straightforward to administer, and then we get a few dollars as far as revenue. What do you think?
Well, if you sort of examine parking rates in various communities, it's
I
a
mean, they do
huge,
$1 an hour.
great deal, because
It's a good deal.
$12 a day.
You guys want to change it? 15?
I think
16.50?
12's Good.
Yeah, I like 12.
I think 12's
See
good.
what happens with that.
Yeah.
I've had a couple living situations where they had to redo the roof, and there are nails and stuff, and we weren't allowed to park in the
Yeah.
parking lot for a week. And like, I had a really sweet landlord who like literally called around trying to find places for us to park, you
Mhm.
know, just for like 4 days. And like, so I could see scenarios like that, like, you know, or somebody has a guest visiting for like a week or two.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the 12 makes it kind of accessible for like those kinds of
Mhm.
scenarios. I think going higher makes it so it doesn't seem like an option in those scenarios someone
Yeah,
would take.
no,
Yeah.
you're right.
I think it's like, and I think it's like $110 or $112 for 6 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those are coveted after.
Those are,
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's a good deal
Those are
too.
hot.
yeah,
Did we vote?
no,
No, we didn't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All in
we have
favor?
to make a motion. Did we?
I think I did make a
Oh,
motion.
okay.
So all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And the next item is the bid package will be available. This should be available tomorrow, right? So I move that we make the bid package available. So contractors can bid on the bridge construction project in the Millbrook Preserve. Bid shall be accepted until 1 p.m. on Friday, May 26th.
Second.
Any further discussion? It just says here, this is the bids and the matter of awarding the contract will take place on June 7th at 7 p.m. The project shall be completed no later than October 31, 2023. All in favor? Aye. Next item is the county. I believe their plan involves using water from the well at 101 Plains Road. That's not up and running yet, but they're trying to complete the construction project of the Veteran Cemetery, so they need some water. I spoke with Blue. He was comfortable with the idea of allowing them to pull up to Sojourner Truth Park on Plains Road and use a tanker that could fill water from the river that would be used for hydro seeding at the cemetery. I move that we green light that project.
Cool question into
Yeah,
that. Is that one trip or several trips?
a few trips.
Few
Yeah,
trips, okay.
yeah. I don't know the total number.
Right.
Not that more than one. That,
More than one.
yeah, that was how the email was worded. Because they originally asked us to use a fire hydrant, and I was thinking, okay, we can attach a meter to that, and Blue said that would not be a good idea because using a hot fire hydrant on a dead end like Plains Road would be a water hammer and brown water nightmare.
Good call.
So with, I'm glad we were able to figure out an alternative, you know, especially since the landing is so close to the project.
Yeah, good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then the next item is, we got a note from the town supervisor. They have a project to repair the handicap lift, which would cost $10,783. You know, as we've discussed in the past, the way we pay for capital projects at Memorial Pool Park is for the village general fund to pay for half and the town B fund to pay for the other half. I appreciate that the town supervisor sent us this, you know, I guess they've been working on this solution for a bit of time. One thing that we would like to ask, and we've asked for it before, is like just having a better sense of upcoming capital expenses. We're real sticklers for budgeting, and we would rather have a sense of, you know, what we might spend money on. This makes budgeting for us a little bit trickier when we're asked for things without some pre-planning. We also think it makes a great deal of sense to have these conversations happen earlier, because there may be opportunities for the town highway department, the village public works, and Bill Russell, who runs the pool, you know, to just all get on the same page in terms of you know, what projects should be paid for and when, because there may be opportunities to work collaboratively. So we're just encouraging that kind of discourse and working together spirit. But I move that we go ahead and greenlight paying $5,391.32, which would be half of this handicap lift expense.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move that we, or, I would like to move bills and claims. All in favor?
Aye.
Any planning board liaison update?
Yeah, the planning board met last Tuesday. The deck was approved. You mentioned the other public hearings at the start of the meeting, including a cat cafe at 7-11 Church Street. There was discussion, quite a bit of discussion about traffic at the two sites being proposed for multi-use residential by a resident who was concerned about traffic, asking for perhaps a traffic light at the corner of Montague and 32 or Chestnut. And that's it in a nutshell.
That was an interesting meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, any ZBA update?
ZBA has not met. Since our last
Good.
meeting.
All right, anything else from the village board? Motion to adjourn.
Aye.
Good night.
Thank you.
Tell us when we're off.